Hi, everybody. This is my 5 takeaways for discussion 3 on is the mainstream media a threat to our freedom and sanity? My first takeaway actually comes from the quote from Henry David Thoreau, where he says, "I rejoice that horses and steers have to be broken before they can be made the slaves of men, and that men themselves have some wild oats still left to sow before they become submission members of society." And basically, like the video is saying, it says, most of us are submissions to a fault. We are submission to a fault. If we are told by somebody of higher authority to do something because we might fear them, or because, they make more money than us, or they make a promise to protect us, we're going to do what they say. We feel like it's something that they could potentially do worse to us if we don't do what they say that we should do at the time. That scares me, because it makes me realize like we are kind of slaves to our phones. And of course, it talks about total totalitarianism, where our government can take total control of our lives and basically tell us how to live, what to eat, what to wear, and nobody wants that, really, right? We all like having our own freedom and our own choices. But of course, if we continue to allow our higher authorities to rule us in certain ways in our phones, then it can potentially start wars, cause more suffering than needed. And over time, I think we need to adapt to not let our phones take over us so much. Kind of like how we talked about last week, that we can become addicted to these things, and without realizing it, there's some indirect submissions and stuff that we might do. So that leads me to my next point. My second one that I got was about culture. And it talked about how culture basically has an impact on the way we believe. It said that the politics is a downstream from culture, that culture is afterwards determines the type of rule that emerges in society, which has been true for a long time. But one could also say that culture is a downstream from technology, and technological advances create new possibilities for how we interact with our world and how we change. Changes in communication technologies are most impactful, just like the video said. They sculpt the flow of information, and information is power. It absolutely is. And I will say that I have family members who once believed in the Bible and now they don't. And I believe it's based off their cultural worldview and their technological uses, for sure. I actually have a cousin who wanted to become, he was a he, now he's a she. And that just, it devastates, my aunt, because she didn't raise him to be that way. And so it tore them up a little bit in their sanity and how the media impacted this, she feels like, or other people influenced it, because he was able to see that in other cultures and society that was acceptable. And so that is a very real thing that happens. It's never going to change. And I think until we can find a way to, I don't know how everyone else's opinions are on it, but I've had to come to terms that I believe in what I believe, and that I hold that belief, and I don't try to let anyone else take me from it. And I'm okay with that, in the sense that other people are going to also, and that's not, in my belief system, right for me to judge others. So it was a very interesting takeaway for me for that one, because information is power, for sure. Which leads me to my third point. And this third one is a long one that I wanted to write the quote down on. And this came from the video. It says, "The modern press itself is a new phenomenon. Its typical unit is a great agency of mass communication. These agencies facilitate thought and discussion. They can stifle it. They can advance the progress of civilization, or they can thwart it. They can debase and vulgarize mankind. They can endanger the peace of the world, and they can play up or down the news and its significance, foster and feed emotions, create complacent fictions and blind spots, and misuse the great words and uphold empty slogans. That was a very powerful statement. I think we've all been subjected to this some way, form, or fashion. It makes me think about gun laws. In our Constitution it says we have the right to bear arms, but with all the tragedies that have happened and all the violence that comes from guns, it makes us question our use of guns in society now and our purpose for them, and then it definitely makes the government want to play with our freedom with them, and that really makes a lot of people mad too. I mean, as it should if it's been in our Constitution for a while, but at the same time, if it's causing all these tragedies, which is, nobody likes, it should question our use in them. And that definitely puts a division and kind of makes mankind come into a very big disagreement on things. It makes me think about the abortion laws. It makes me think about even our student debt relief laws currently. Many people don't agree that some student loans should be forgiven, while others are totally relieved and super happy and excited about it. So I think that we have to think of it in both ways and how it can impact us as society, and not let our society or social media technologies tell us how to feel, and we take our own thoughts and we put them into perspective, and we put ourselves in someone else's shoes for a minute to see how we would react that way in their shoes too. I'm all about kindness, y'all. So if I can find a way for everyone to get along, I will try. So that's where that was a good takeaway for me to talk about. Leads me to my fourth one, which again, this one I wrote down. This is by Michael, I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. It's like Parenti or something. So this one says, for those that determine what information flows through the mass media have the power to detect or the attention of the masses towards certain issues and events and away from others. He also goes on for another quote in the video that says, the media may not always be able to tell us what to think, but they are strikingly successful in telling us what to think about. That's true. The news definitely has a huge ability to impact what we think, how we feel. It has the ability to scare us senseless. I have learned that as a child and growing up. COVID's a very good example of this. We've had people in higher power tell us how we should react on the COVID vaccines, how we should react with wearing masks and social distancing. And now look at us now. We're totally different, but there's still people out there who I know who are still quarantining because they are being compromised and they don't trust society, and they fear things that the news have told them, or maybe they don't believe what the news has told them. So, it's strikingly amazing what we can take from that and how impactful it is on the world, as we've all seen. So that leads me to my fifth point, which is about Plato's, what's the name of it? But I wrote it down too, bear with me just a second. Alright. Because his point is really good. Here it is, okay. And I'll start with this quote by Richard Warner. The mass media is a translation into actuality of Plato's celebrated figures of the cave. The defect of the prisoners is that they cannot perceive the truth. The wall before them on which the shadows play is the screen on which press motion picture and radio project their account of life. So that one was pretty heavily impacted on me too, because if we do not take time away from our phones, if we do not take time away from social media, if we do not allow ourselves to become aware of what's going on, what will our reality look like? Since we do obviously can all see when we walk into restaurants, we're all on our phones. Walk to the park. Oh my gosh, I've gone to the park and I've seen parents not paying attention to their kids, they're paying attention to their phones. Scares me to no end, and we're influencing our kids to do that, and our kids are gonna become prisoners to it. They're gonna see these things and they're gonna envy the wrong things. They're going to accept the wrong things. And so this takeaway makes us remember that we have, well, the reality of imprisonment in our own minds of technology. And that basically once the new technology comes into society, and it cannot cease to permit that society until cannot permeate that society until every institution is stimulated. That's by Marshall McLuhan. I believe that's true too. So we have got to learn how to not let the social media control us, and we have to know when it's taking over, and make sure we don't let it affect who we truly are. So these were interesting points for me. I couldn't just pick 5, but I had to. So I'm going to be interested to hear what everyone else's 5 takeaways are, because this is a really good video. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a good day.